Hello, my name is Devin Moore.
My name is Alex Liu.
I'm Marieta Griselda.
And I'm Jesus Javier Sandoval-Guzman.
And we are going to be talking about the epidemiology of obesity, a bigger picture. This is the table of contents that we'll be talking about today. Obesity is a worldwide epidemic that affects more than 1/3 of adults in the United States. It also affects 1 in every children that lives in the United States, which equates to children that are overweight and are likely to be overweight when they are adults. Foreign countries have also seen the level of obesity double or even triple among its citizens. Obesity is becoming a common and costly disease and continues increasing yearly. Obesity-related conditions can be responsible for heart disease, diabetes, and certain types of cancers. Obesity is often defined as excess body weight that is not equivalent to the height of a person. It occurs when we consume much more food than our body actually needs on a daily basis, and the intake is greater than the calories that are burned. Overweight and obesity are problems that are increasing yearly and lead to not only significant health problems, but also social difficulties for people. In this presentation, we will show the likelihood and trends of obesity, review the risk and health factors associated with obesity, and the related medical costs in terms of its morbidity, morality, and economic weight that this disease can cause.
And then this slide is about the classification of body weight in adults and children. The classification between adults and children differs because children's body develops over time. So the adults' criteria are determined by BMI, the body mass index, which is the body weight in kilograms divided by height meters squared, along with the waist circumference, which is a measure of abdominal adiposity. Children are determined by the age and sex-specific BMI percentiles for age 2 to 19. And on the right shows a chart of BMI and percentiles. Then this slide is about the prevalence and trends for adults in the US and Europe and other countries. Let me preface that this article's research is mostly done in US and Europe. So a small amount of research is done for other countries. The trend and prevalence have risen for both US and Europe and other countries. For example, in the US, from 1960 to 1994, the overweight was around 31%, and obesity jumped from 13% to 23%, bringing the prevalence of overweight and obesity to 55%. And then from 2003 to 2004, obesity rose to 32%. And the study done on Europe was on 5 countries, which are Italy, UK, Netherlands, Germany, and Denmark. The research was done from 1992 to 1998, and then from 1998 to 2000 and 2005. It indicated that adult obesity increased from 13% to 17%, with the prevalence reaching 30% by 2015 in these populations. And other countries such as Mexico or China has also shown an increase. Then this slide will be about children, and it is better than adults in some way. However, the rate of obesity still shows an increase. Like the prevalence of class 2 obesity has risen from 3.8 to 5.9 of BMI less or equal to 120 of the 95th percentile. And in the Europe, obesity prevalence varies between and within countries. Based on 2007 to 2008 data collected in 12 European countries, observed overweight and obesity prevalence of 13.3 to 49% of boys and 18.4 to 42.5% of girls. While the obesity affected 6 to 26.6% of boys and 4.6 to 17.3% of girls. And other countries also shown an increase, such as China.
Risk factors for obesity. There are 4 big factors. The first one is genetics. Over 60 relatively common genetic markers have been implicated in elevated susceptibility to obesity. The second big factor is individual behaviors, which is divided into 2. Diet. Diet has a big influence to obesity that 50% of deaths in 2000 in the USA were attributable to excess weight owing to poor diet and physical inactivity. Physical activity, sedentary behaviors, and sleep. About 150 to 250 minutes per week of moderate intensity activity is required to prevent weight gain. Socioeconomic risk factors, which is income and education. Studies show that the wealthier an individual, the more likely to be the individual to become overweight. Environmental risk factors also divide into two. The first one is the built environment. Presence of neighborhood physical activity or recreational spaces has been associated with increased physical activity levels and healthy food environments. Environmental pathogens, which are included viruses, microbiomes, and social networks. Studies indicates that obesity may be attributable to infection or that obesity itself may be contagion. Several viruses have been identified as potentially having a causal role in obesity.
Right. The cost of obesity, the mortality, the comorbidities, and the economic burden. So I'm briefly going to touch up on what I'm going to be talking about. Obesity has been shown to give individuals an increased risk of chronic conditions such as diabetes, extra fat in the blood, and deterioration of the mental health, which all impacts the heart, which gives them stroke, cardiovascular disease, and certain cancers. So overall mortality states here, being overweight, obese can shorten the lifespan from 4 to 7 years. This is a taken statistic from individuals who had excess weight, poor diet, and who are relatively inactive. The overall cause of death is by cardiovascular disease, diabetes, cancers, and accidental deaths. Here, they're going to talk diabetes. Being overweight can raise the risk of getting type 2 diabetes by a factor of 3 and being obese by a factor of 7. The increased risk only affects roughly 80% of those overweight and obese. Heart disease and stroke are the leading cause of death in the United States. Death by cardiovascular disease is due to insufficient blood to organs due to too much fat, which is blocking the flow of blood to the organs. Another killer is hypertension. Here we have cancer. In 2007, 4% of obese men and 7% of obese women developed cancer. The cancer was developed from the pre-existing diabetes. The main regions that are at risk of cancer are the colon, pancreas, the breast, mainly in women of postmenopausal, and inside the uterus and the kidneys. For the mental health, being overweight and obese takes a toll on an individual because of the excess fat in the body. The excess fat affects the brain by adding fat in areas that the fat does not belong, and it pushes the brain in different portions and cuts blood flow. So in this case, the individuals show a deterioration of the frontal lobes, the anterior cingulated gyrus, the hippocampus, and the thalamus. And for the economic burden of obesity, the more an individual weighs, the more it's going to cost. On average, an obese American will cost an extra $1,152 per year. In their lifetime, they'll pay an extra $12,660. For obese women, they'll pay an extra $3,600 per year. And in their lifetime, they'll pay roughly $19,630.
Even though studies have shown that the percentages of obesity is rising, there are certainly a number of ways that can help to prevent obesity in both children and adults. It must start at an early age and educate your children on the importance of eating healthy and maintaining a healthy weight. Try to eat healthy foods and limit processed foods to a minimum consumption on a weekly basis. It is advisable to limit the amount of junk processed foods that you buy for your household, and also supply your home with healthy snacks, fruits, and vegetables. And that is it. Thank you.